Hi, have you ever wondered how you can develop your own chatbot, something like ChatGPT, for free? If so, do not worry. This is the video for that. In this video, we're going to use Streamlit to build a UI, and we're going to have an LLM provided by Groq Cloud in order to use that LLM and get responses to our chat. I know for many of you, this would be your first AI project or stepping into AI chatbots. So what I've done in this video for the first few minutes, I'd be explaining all the components in the app and telling what works and why they work. And then we'll be getting to the coding part. If you're already well versed with the theory, you can go directly to the coding section. So this video is also a follow-up to one of the shots that I put on this channel a few days back, which showed how you can use an LLM for free. So without further ado, let's get to explaining the project. So this is how we are going to set up our chatbot project. Any chatbot that we build will probably consist of three components. The first one and the main component is our LLM component, or the large language model. So the large language model is the component that is responsible for generating your responses. So you give it some input as words. The LLM gives you some output, which are sensible words. The second one is your provider. So at the end of the day, your large language model is just a set of matrices, vectors, or more formally, tensors containing weights, right? So these weights are numbers. So what happens is that you give input as words to your large language model that gets converted into some sensible numbers, and the weights and your input numbers are mathematically computed, and you get sensible words as the output, right? But where does this sort of mathematical computation occur? It needs some sort of system to run on. So that is where our provider comes, and this provider can be a cloud provider, or the LLM can be stored locally on your computer. So we definitely need a provider to run the LLM. Finally, we have the UI, right? So most of the chatbots that you use, you don't use them on some a boring command prompt. You use them on a nice interface like a chat GPT website, right? So we definitely need a user interface for our chatbot app. So that's what we're going to see now quickly, these separate components and how we are going to set up the whole thing. Let's start with our main component, which is our LLM, right? So any language model per se, the main task of it is to generate words, or more correctly, tokens in response to some input that you give it, right? So a large language model is trained on some sort of text, and it understands the patterns in that text. And when you give it new inputs, it's able to generate new and sensible text. Why are we calling it large though? So a large language model is trained on a very, very large quantity of text. So when you train a language model on a very large quantity of text, you're able to encounter more patterns and more data to generate more sensible responses. For example, let's say you go and ask a kid who is studying in first grade to write an essay. The kid does not know a lot of words. They do not know the right grammatical structure, and they also do not know a lot of concepts in the world to make a sensible essay. But now let's say you ask a PhD in English graduate to write an essay. So they know the right amount of words, they know the right grammatical structures, and they also have a lot of information of the world to make very, very sensible essays. So that's how an LLM is different from just a generic language model. So a large language model usually has a large number of parameters, but more accurately, it's trained on a very, very large data set, and that's why it's called large. Okay. So now we have the LLM, which is responsible for generating tokens. Uh, but as I said, we need a provider to actually run this large language model on and to get our responses. So just to give you some context, a large language model may be something like Llama 4, Llama 4 Scout, a Mixtral, so on and so forth, some Mixtral model version. Okay, now let's look at the provider. Uh, in this project, we are going to use the Groq Cloud as our provider that is going to run this LLM. We are going to pass some sort of input to this Groq LLM running on Groq Cloud servers, and we're going to get the output. So why are we going to use Grow Cloud is because most of these LLMs that we're going to use in our project are not small, right? They are many, many GBs, and they cannot run on our local systems. So we are going to use a Grow Cloud provider to run our LLM. Okay. Now let's look at the third component before coming to see how we're going to connect these two. So we need a UI for a project, right? So any project, as I said before, a chatbot project, is not very boring. It's not run on a command line, right? So for that, we are going to have something known as Streamlit, which is a Python framework that allows us to build these beautiful web components. So we are going to use Streamlit to have a very, very beautiful chatbot project. So you have some chat history here and you have a chat input, right? So this is where the user is going to access our chatbot app, and he's going to enter something and he's going to see the history of the chat and so on and so forth. But as you can see here, now these two are disconnected components. So we have an LLM sitting somewhere inside our Groq Cloud servers, and we have our Streamlit app, right, which the user is supposed to use. Now, how are you going to connect the Streamlit app to our Grow Cloud server and the LLM inside? Very simple. We are going to use something known as an API. So to understand what an API is, you can think of going to like a restaurant, right? Let's say you a fast food restaurant and you're going to order a burger, right? So all you do is you go and talk to the receptionist and you say that you want a burger, and your burger becomes your order, and you give them some sort of money, right? It can be rupees or it can be dollars, wherever you are, right? So your burger is your input, and let's say your the money that you give it is your credentials, right? So if you don't give money, you're not going to get the burger. So all you know is, so you give the burgers order, and this receptionist goes to the kitchen, makes the order, and returns back with the burger for you to eat. So you are not going to go to the kitchen yourself to get the burger. So your reception is there, becomes your API, right? So your interface to the kitchen. So application program interface and API is called. So your waiter is the interface between you and the kitchen. So this is how an API works. So the same way, what we're going to do here in our project is that we're going to get an API key, which is like our money right here, which is going to give us the credentials to access our LLM inside the Grow Cloud server and API key. And we are also going to pass the input. You remember how we gave the burger as an order to the waiter? Same way, we are going to give the input, which is the user's input. And our LLM is going to generate a response. Okay. And so this should have just gone that way. And the response is going to come back to our Streamlit app, which we are going to render out to the user. So this is how the whole project is going to be set up. Let's quickly start coding it. Okay, now let's start creating our chatbot. It's going to be very simple. For that, we open up our VS Code and come to File, Open Folder, and let me say New Folder, and let's just call it Chatbot, right? And open that up. And after that, we have to create a virtual environment. For that, you hit Control Shift P and it opens up this panel. And then you go to create environment, Python create environment and virtual environment, and select the version of Python that you have. Most of them should work just fine. Now let's wait for the virtual environment to complete installing, and let's go to the next step. Okay, now the virtual environment is installed. Let's go and open up the terminal and right pip install Streamlit. So Streamlit is going to be used to build our UI. Then LangChain and LangChain Groq. So this is going to provide the LLM on which we're going to build our chatbot. And finally, Python.env. So if you haven't heard of .env files, don't worry. So .env files are going to be used to store our secrets, right? So in this app too, we are having the API key, which we don't want to put on GitHub so other people can use, right? The API key is supposed to be our own. It's our credentials, right? If you've already used the .env file, you would know what I'm talking about. And you hit enter at this point. I wouldn't hit enter because I've already run this step once. Okay. Now let's go to the next step. First, let's create our .env file. So the .env file is the file that I was talking about that we're not going to publish on GitHub or put publicly. This .env file is going to store all the secrets that are related to our app, the credentials and so on and so forth. Okay, so we have the .env file, and I told it's going to be used to store our Grow Cloud API. But do we have it yet? No. So first, what we do is go and open up our favorite browser, and let's Grow Cloud. So we have to go to this site called Grow Cloud and create an account. If you haven't already, you can go up and create an account with Google. It's completely free. You can also refer to the shorts. Um, and then come to this API key section, right? And then what you do is create API key. So this is the new API key that we're going to create. And let me just call it chat. Okay. And let's submit. At this point, see, the API keys that these sites give out to you are usually just seen only once. So as soon as they're seen, you're supposed to copy and paste them somewhere safe, right? Once you close this window, you're not going to have access to this API key anymore. So you copy it, and I can close it because I've copied it now. Come back to the .env file that we created and say Groq API key and paste the API key that you already created on that side. Okay, now this part is done. We have created our .env file to store our API key secretly. Now let's start building the app. Okay, now that we have created the environment file, we are going to create the app. It's going to be very simple. So come out here and say new file and say app.py, right? So we need to start building our UI with Streamlit. It's going to be very simple. So first import Streamlit as st, right? And let me give the app a title. Let's say st.title. The documentation of Streamlit is very simple. It's a very simple framework to use. It's built for prototyping sites with Python. I'll put the link for the website in the description below, and you can read it and learn more about it. I even build more complicated sites in the future. This is going to be a very simple site. Okay, so st.title chatbot. Now I want to run this and see what happens, right? So for that, I'll open my terminal up, right? New terminal, and all I have to do is Streamlit run. Also, this is a command Streamlit run and give the file name where your Streamlit code is stored. So Streamlit run app.py. So as soon as you hit this, this site will open up with the title that you just entered, st.chatbot. But that's a very basic title, right? Now we need more elements on this app. So that's what we're going to do now. So let me open this back up. Okay, so what does every chatbot need? It needs an input to enter your text and a submit button. So that's what we're going to build. So left comma right. So my left section is going to contain my input box and my right section is going to contain the submit button. Left comma right is equal to st.columns and I need two columns. Perfect. So in my left column is going to be my text input. So with left uh, text. So query is equal to st.text input. Okay, so st.text input is going to be the component that's going to be displayed on the screen, and whatever I enter into that st.text input is going to come and be stored in my query. So st.text input, and we need a label for this. This something that has to be just shown, and with right. So if st.button, okay, and let me call it submit. And I like an orange button, so I'm going to say type is equal to primary. Right? All the documentation is very simple. You don't have to worry about it for now. So let us go and see how this app looks right now. Right? So we have both our input box and the submit button, right? And but I don't like the fact that this input box is not aligned with my submit button. And people do know, right? This is an entry box where I have to enter something. So I'm going to hide this enter something component. To do that, it's very simple. Let me come open this back and say label visibility is equal to collapsed. Right. Now that takes care of our input box. Okay, perfect. Now we have an input box and now we have a submit button. We also need a chat history component below this to show all the text that has been entered by us and also the responses received by the LLM. So that's what I'm going to build underneath this now. Before that, I have to initialize some sort of variable that holds my chat history. First, let me just close that. I don't really need that part of the app. And let me also increase the font size if possible. Perfect. Right? So to do that, so what I'm going to do right now is to store my chat history, right? So if chat history not in st.session state. So st.session state, you can think of it as holding all your variables. And now why I have to say if this variable chat history is not in my session state is very simple, because otherwise this variable will get initialized every time the app reruns, and I don't want that. I only want it to run once. So if chat history is not in st.session state, um, so st.session state dot chat history. Okay, let me just make it a very simple list for now. Okay, so this list is going to store all the user messages and the AI messages. Okay, perfect. Okay, now what we're going to do is as soon as the submit button is hit by the user, we are going to append that query by the user to our chat history and we're going to display it. So if the submit button is hit, so what we have to do, st dot session state dot chat history dot append. Okay, and so in append I'm going to say this is the user's message and they are entering the query and followed by a new line. Perfect. Right. So we also have to display this. It's going to be very simple for entry in, and let me just call the rerun right here. So st dot rerun. Okay. For entry in st dot session state dot chat history, right? Uh, st dot markdown, and we just have to mark down that entry. So whatever is entered into our chat history, we're just going to display it. So let's run this and check it out. So rerun. Okay, and let me say test. As you can see, user hyphen text. So that's displayed. Now let us go and, okay, you would have had a doubt here. Bro, where is the LLM? I'm entering my text. I'm not getting any response. So that's what we're going to build now. We're going to build the LLM response for our Streamlit app. So this is the code without the LLM integration. Let's quickly integrate the LLM. To do that, we have to import a few things. So from lang chain Groq, import chat Groq. From lang uh, chain dot memory, import conversation buffer memory, and from lang chain dot chains, import conversation chain. Yeah. So we have imported the things that we need to integrate the LLM, but remember that we stored an API key in the dot environment file. Before we integrate an LLM, we need to retrieve the API key. So in order to do that, it's quite simple. So we say first, let's say import OS, right? And then from dot env import load dot env. So this allows us to load the environment file and get our secrets out. So let me say Groq API key. Um, Before that, load dot env. Groq API key is equal to os dot get env, and the exact name of the API key variable that you gave right there. So Groq API key. Perfect. Now we have our Groq API key stored in our Groq API key instance. Now let's create our chat variable. So that's quite simple too. So first I have to create the LLM. LLM is equal to so chat Groq, and here I have to pass the API key. So API key, we have secretly retrieved it into the Groq API key variable. So API key is equal to Groq API key. And after that, you also need to pass the model name. So the model, the LLM model that you want to use. That's very simple. Just come back to this site and open the docs section and um, go to the models page here, and then you can see the supported models. Over here we have the Llama 3.1 8 billion instant. That's what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to copy it right here. I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to say model name is equal to, so yeah, so now we have initialized our LLM. Um, After this, we need so most of the conversations. For example, if I ask, where are you going tomorrow, and you're going to say, I'm going to go to the park, and I ask, where is it? Right? You automatically understand that I'm asking where is the park, right? Though that was not the correct. Like I asked the question, you gave me an answer, and when I asked a follow-up question, you were able to remember. Uh, what the context of the question was, right? So even chatbots require the context of the previous conversation to answer future questions. So we have to have some sort of memory. So that's what I'm going to create here. Memory is equal to conversation buffer memory, right? So we have our memory, but now you see LLM and the memory instances are different. Now I have to combine them into one. How am I going to do that? Very simple. We need the conversation chain for that. So let me put this into session states. St dot session state dot chat is equal to conversation chain, and then LLM is equal to LLM, and we have our memory is equal to memory, and verbose is equal to false. So verbose gives you a detailed log of the output, which is just used for debugging. Right now, we do not need it as such, so I'm going to leave that be. Okay, now we have our chat instance, right? Where we can give in an input and get a response out. But how do we use it in our app? Very simple. Come out is a section where we're submitting the query, right? So the user is submitting a query. We need a response from the chat object for that query and print it back out on the screen. It's super simple to do that. So st.session dot chat history, okay, dot append. Now I'm going to say the AI's response is going to be, first, I have to use this chat functionality. So let me come down here. So st.session state dot chat dot run, and then you're going to pass the user's query. That's all. So query. And then let me just to nicely format this message out, add two new lines at the end. So this is how we are going to run our code. Before that, let me just check this out. Okay, so I missed an N here. So yeah, perfect. Now let's try running this app. How do we run it? Very simple. So let me open up the terminal and say Streamlit run app.py. Perfect. And it sets up the app for us. And let me say test. Perfect. And we get the AI response, and you can add multiple messages if you want. Hi, so on and so forth. The AI will always give us a great response for our messages. So this is how you create a chatbot. I'll probably beautify this code a bit more and add more functionality, and you can take inspiration from that and build your own fantastic chatbots. Quickly, I'll see you soon, maybe in another video. Until then, keep coding and keep enjoying.